My little secret is to decide whether I need to make the move into a new path. Is as I look at my current environment, and if I can imagine it as being in the past and me visiting it, if I can feel it being in the past, then I know it's time for a change.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we're so pleased to have Joseph McElroy with us. Joseph, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Joseph, for being on the Road Less Traveled Show. To start with, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background, what initial line of work you were in, and how long you're in that path?
Well, I started out working in telecommunications programming with IBM and Research Triangle Park in North Carolina back in the early 80s, helping actually create their version of gateways that allowed internet traffic to go across their proprietary networks. So I got involved in the internet way early, and then I decided that at that time the big company life wasn't for me. So I left and pursued my own interests in both art and in my own companies. I created a company worked on creating a line of business. It's now called Building Information Modeling. Back then it was called Computer-Aided Facilities Management, and I helped invent some of the components of that. And then got into New York City. At the same time, I was actually studying art. So I was actually helping inventing an industry and also going to art school full time. Just pursuing my interests. But ended up in New York, followed that into New York City, where I created a company, a .com. That one of the guys that raised millions of dollars and things like that in that first .com boom. At the same time, I was getting artwork into museums and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I had a fun time there. Then 9/11 happened, and I was there, and it was a big tragedy for me personally in a lot of ways, and with people I knew. So I took some time off and went into the South Bronx and worked with community development corporations to help with technology and stuff with nonprofits in the Bronx, South Bronx. Ended up, I had an exit from the .com, so I was semi sort of retired. But then my wife got a very rare form of cancer, and I had to make money again because I was trying to cure it. So I got into marketing and search engine optimization, and built a company that did a lot of work with direct response companies. I learned a lot about direct response and SEO and internet marketing. Then eventually my wife didn't make it, and she'd been sort of a partner in that, so I created another company that was focusing on a model of working with large companies, and became successful. I had Marriott Worldwide as one of my clients, and Hilton is focused in the travel industry, doing lots of SEO content and optimizations on a per piece basis for big companies. And then COVID sort of destroyed that. Travel industry went totally down the hill. And I had bought my old childhood motel, to save my parents from it, who were holding on with claws, and it had become a drug den. And I bought it from them and was renovating it enough so that it would no longer be a haven for drug dealers, and cleaned it up. But then the only thing in travel that was left after COVID started was local travel. So we started paying attention down here. I started applying some of the concepts I'd learned in working with Marriott and invented in terms of memorable tourism experiences, how you increase brand loyalty, how you get people to revisit, how do you beat the OTAs, the online travel agencies, at their game, so you're not giving them huge percentages. And so was in this motel, it was highly successful at tripling revenue, reducing costs, and things like that. So now I'm, this last year, there's something called memorable tourism experiences. I've created a restaurant that had a lot of critical acclaim, basically based upon formulas. Because I'm not a restaurateur, not a chef, but I use formulas and things like that. And we have a successful bar going on as well that's providing experiences not only to the guests here at the motel, but locals. And so it's enjoying a good time right now. And and now the management had place left. I'm having to refocus what I'm doing here. So I'm actually being a hotel manager for a little while. And I had to do it once when COVID happened in 2021 because I actually made the national news because I put the first vaccine mandate in Western North Carolina, and it made the local news and it made the Charlotte Observer. I got like 3 pages, including the front page, and then that went all over, and I was getting death threats and love letters in the mail. Wow. So that was for a brief time, and now it looks like I'll be doing this for a few months because we're redesigning how you manage a motel, right, and more horizontal than hierarchical. And at the same time, I'm now starting to toy with consulting with and building another consulting business on memorable tourism experiences and SEO and artificial intelligence that's happening out there in the world right now.
Wow, lot going on. I've been to your restaurant and I've been to your bar, and they both are excellent. So certainly very enjoyable. So that's pretty cool that you're taking some of those. You did it for big companies, now you're doing it for your own place. So very nice.
Yeah,
very nice. Very cool. So Joseph, if you think back, maybe it's some of your techie days, maybe some of your art days. Think about whatever story you want to tell. Just looking for, is there any funny story that happened to you somewhere along the way you could share?
A funny story about my existence. Well, I was telling this to somebody. It's a little risque, but I was telling this story the other day. At some point when I was both an entrepreneur with millions of dollars of investor money in the bank, and at the same time I was still in the art world, right? Mm-hmm. So other artists would would try to pitch me ideas, right? So one of them pitched an idea of doing a full cast of me, sort of like as a .com king. I thought it was funny, all right? So we did a full body cast, and he made me as a giant nude sculpture. Well, then he also kept the cast, and then he had an opening, and he recast me as baked bread, all right? What was funny about it is that, when he installed it, he also ran a tube up through the base of it and out my and had wine coming out of my and so the opening he had people pick bread off the body of me and then dip it in the wine and eat it. And so I was about an hour late. When I got there, people were looking at me like I was divine. I mean, it was the weirdest surreal experience. It was like, it's him. I just ate of his body. It was like it was very surreal and funny and humorous and everything at the same time.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, definitely. There's some art that's a little out there. I know.
I didn't know that he was going to do that part.
Right.
Right. So it was quite surprising when I got there. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That doesn't happen every day, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Well, obviously you had probably named off, 6 or 8 different careers there in the middle. But what was you're obviously very entrepreneurial by nature. Is there something that happens each time that makes you want to start a new company? Like what you get to a certain point, you grow to a certain scale, you enjoy the startup phase of it more than the operational phase, or what kind of makes you want to continue to open new businesses? Not very good.
The important point is I'm not an operational. I'm not a manager. All right. Mm-hmm. So first of all, realizing that you're not a manager is important. I mean, I'm laughing and saying I'm doing managerial here. I'm trying as fast as possible to not be a manager. Right. But at the same time, small motel, the problem I've had by putting a manager in place is they become little godlike figures in this area. And then that leads to troubles because they stop listening to, what you're wanting to do. right?
Mhm.
And they start doing what they think is the right thing to do. And, and frankly, the managers you get for small motels are not really, they're not really there to invent business models, right? So, so for me, it's how do you reinvent management of a motel is my little trick, my little thought process right now. But for me, is when I get to the point where I'm having to manage instead of create, that's time for me to look to do something different, right?
Mhm.
Or to find somebody. My biggest successes have been when I found somebody that loves managing, that really loves managing and doesn't have that driving desire to invent their own thing. They love inventing within a management framework, right? Their creativity comes in how to manage in a better way, right? Not in how to sell in a better way, not to how to create a business model in a better way, how to their creativity is in the management, right? And they love the interacting with the creativity of getting people to work together. So when I can partner with somebody like that, that's when I do really well.
That makes sense. Yeah. You've got the idea. You kind of launch with a vision to drive toward a direction, but at the same point in time, at some point you have to shift over from startup phase into the operational phase or into the do the day-to-day grind, and
Right.
That's not what you're good at, like you said. So bring somebody on who is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Just along the way of some of those early startup different things. Again, you've done a bunch of different companies like you talked about. What were some of the obstacles you had to overcome? I mean, clearly you've got the idea and for a lot of these different things. Did you hit some obstacles?
Well, my biggest obstacle is always myself, right? In that, I have an idea and I have a vision and I want to do something, right? But I tend to, let things come to me, right? So the opportunities come to me, the resources and things. And I had to learn how to not take the first one that came, right? Not the first person that came. Not I really need to have the manager to do this. My biggest mistakes is when I take the first person that comes that seems sort of exciting and interesting, but they really don't fit, right? Mm-hmm. But they feel like they could fit if they just learned a little bit more. For me, the obstacles is being patient on getting the things coming to you, the resources and the people that you're going to work with and things like that. Is a sort of patience with it that I didn't have when I was younger, and I kept having the wrong people working with me.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
So as you look back to any one of those careers, as Richard mentioned, like some of the obstacles, what was some of your first victories that you can, latch onto as clearly a sign that you were headed down the right path?
Well, I guess the first one was I'd left IBM and I was full time in art school, right? And I said, well, and then I was running out of IBM retirement money. They do that first early retirement. I took that, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, and so I also had a surprise child, so I had to make money again, right? So so I created a tongue-in-cheek company, which is what I did for a long time. Is I created tongue-in-cheek companies called Fine Arts and Software, right? So I was going to be a consultant of something. I didn't know what it was. But local company needed somebody to do a database and something called DBase for, which not a lot of people knew. And I pick up technology like a lot of people pick up the morning newspaper. It's just like boom, I've read it, I know it, I'm good. So I picked it up and told just sent out. I'm one of the first spammers. I figured out how to get a bunch of fax numbers and then do a mass faxing from my computer using the first sort of ability to do that, and mass fax my resume to companies all over Philadelphia area. And I got a lot of people, big companies that reached out to me, and boom, all of a sudden I was going full time to art school and making 6 figures a year. All right. Wow. So that seemed like an indication that I have some sort of creativity at business.
Okay.
Yeah. It's probably not your standard starving artist story if you're have that coming on the side. Yeah.
I was the first sort of mobile guy. This is the early 90s, right? I was riding around Philadelphia on a bicycle. And I had one of those mobile compact. What was those first mobile computers? Those big bullet things, right? Mm-hmm. And I had one of the first Star Trek, Motorola phones, right? And so I would go into a bar or someplace and set up my computer and have my phone, and I would work. And I go around on a bicycle. I was a millennial before there were millennials. Yeah, so it was fun.
Oh, yeah. Was it the Osborne?
What's that?
The Osborne computer? Is that the big suitcase one that was like one of the early portable ones?
It was one of the. It was a big company. What was it? Not compact. What was it? Started with a C. I can't remember it now. Yeah.
CompuWare, CompuStar,
something like that.
Yeah. I remember the name. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember one particular company I worked for. This was probably, when did I start with them? I guess it was probably early 90s. Was portable computers had come out. So it wasn't like the first generation, probably not like the ones you initially used. So it was a couple of years into it, but I wound up buying this computer for me through the company for work and paying payroll deductions for this ridiculously priced, $5,000 device at that point. And I bought half of it, and I'm like, wait a minute. Thinking back years later, I'm like, why did I buy that? Why did the company buy it for me? But anyway, so Joseph, maybe more recent days in your hotelier days, as you're doing now, is there a funny story you can share? Maybe not the manager leaving, but anything you can share there?
Oh, funny stories. I mean, well, you get funny stories all the time because people come in and do the craziest things, right? I don't really want to talk too much about my guests, right? But they will. Yeah, this place was built by my it was built in the 50s, and my father, who had a construction company, my grandmother bought it, and then my mom and dad got it from them in the mid 70s. And over the years, because he had a construction company, he would build sort of side projects, expand a little bit, do little things here. Well, he built a master bedroom, which is now, when you were in the dining room, the master bedroom is off to the back end, and then there's a door that's now boarded up, but that used to go to the master bedroom. And now we made it into sort of a luxury room. Well, he had created this big bathroom, but he put something in there that's not very often in these parts. He put a bidet in there, all right? Yeah. And so I've gone a couple times to show somebody the room, right? Because it's a luxury room, high price. They want to see it, and they'll see that bidet, and they don't know if they should ask about it. They don't know, what it is. And then some people act like they know what it is, and they'll reach down and they'll turn. There's two knobs at the top, and they'll turn them, and then there's a knob in the middle. They'll turn that, and it'll spray up in your face.
Yeah. Didn't expect that one, did you? Oh man, yeah, that's funny.
Terrible water fountain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, just where are you today in your journey? Like I said, you have lots of different startups. You're currently working on your hotel there.
Well, yeah.
So kind of where are you? Where do you envision that?
Well, I envision this, I want to get out of managing it. Mm-hmm. So I'm working hard to put in a new kind of management structure that's more horizontal. All right. And then the type of marketing and the work I've done with memorable tourism experiences is something I want to reproduce either for other venues or maybe some of my own. I don't know how many of these I want to buy and do myself, because I also, I'm 61 and I have 4.5-year-old twins, right? So I have another life, to be, I have a son from previous marriage, but I didn't get to be with him all that much because, divorce and everything else. But these kids I'm being able to be with all the time. And so it's like, I'd like to spend more time. So I'm thinking, I'm looking at two directions. One, I thought that maybe I would go in the direction of doing a small chain, but maybe more attractive to me is to build a marketing company and a management company that works with people that want to do that. So I'm evaluating those two paths right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. So Joseph, is there something you do personally or maybe through your company or one of your companies in the past that you can mention that you do to help others in a way to give back?
In a way to give back?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I used to do this all the time as I do training, I would do that training with at-risk teenagers, training, with, disadvantaged moms. I would teach them how to create businesses online, where I'd even teach them how to use computer systems and things like that. So I did that quite a bit, over the years. Did a lot of training for people. Now, in a lot of ways I'm as a hotelier, I think the future of local travel is hotels in a lot of ways were plopped down in a community, but they didn't really do much for the community, right? So a lot of motels and hotels won't rent to locals, right? Mm-hmm. So I try to be aware of when there's emergencies or catastrophes and things in the area, and I will make efforts to reach out and say, locals, it's all right, come here. I'll waive like pet fees because they got to bring their dogs and everything with them. Yeah. Reduce the rates or even give it away for free. So I try to be, and I also try to make the stuff that we do here available to the local community as well as best I can, right? So that they have resources to call upon.
Nice.
I was going to say, is there something you've recently implemented in your business that's allowed you to achieve some of your goals to scale faster?
To scale faster? Well, it was both a godsend and a not. I mean, the restaurant and bar, we're able to give us more revenue in the winter. It's tough in here to have a winter business. Now there are some problems with that. Labor is really tough right here, right? So right now, for example, we only have the bar open with some small bites while we're trying to find a new chef, because the chefs get poached pretty quick. And then also, we have to look at reinventing the model a little bit of the restaurant, because we were doing sort of fine dining, but the average per head ticket was only $23, right? And it needed to be $50 at least. So, but what it was is that people were coming in and splitting plates. They just wanted to enjoy the experience. So it's like we might need to not be so mountain culture and have a little bit more city culture in having small plates actually being small plates. Mm-hmm. So doing some reinvention is impossible, but bringing additional revenue in the winter here is brutal. All right, in terms of business, you go from six figures or close to six figures in a month to like 20 grand. It's brutal, right? And you try to keep the people because labor's hard to get around, so it's brutal. You got to have other revenue streams. So that's more than anything is why we're looking at the restaurant and the bar.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, take that lesson and apply that to your own personal life. We talk about this quite frequently, and the fact that so many people only rely upon the W-2 job and one stream of income to support their family. Well, again, you love your W-2 job, great. Do the best you can, make it a huge success. But at the same point in time, start thinking also about other streams of income, some kind of side hustle, some kind of investment strategy, and again, people have done well in the stock market, don't get me wrong, but at the same point in time, the roller coaster of that drives me crazy. Right. So that's a lot of reason we're in real estate, and we do real estate because it's slow growing, but at the same point in time, it's typically very stable, when compared to other things. So yeah, gotcha. All right. So Joseph, what advice would you share with somebody who's considering making a path change?
A path change. For me, for me, my little secret is to decide whether I need to make the move into a new path. As I look at my current environment, and if I can imagine it as being in the past and me visiting it, if I can feel it being in the past, then I know it's time for a change.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I didn't phrase it that way before, but yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, just what's the best way for our listeners to reach out and learn more about what you have going on with your motel there in Maggie Valley, and what else do you have on the horizon?
Two things. I got the metalarkmotel.com, right? Is the site for the motel. I have Smokey's Adventures, smokeysadventure.com, not Smokey's plural and adventure singular.com, which is building up to be an advertising for businesses in the smoke, trying to attract people, visitors that are in the Smokey Mountains and locals. Mm-hmm. And then I have GalileoTechMedia.com, which is my marketing company focused on, memorable tourism experiences, travel, artificial intelligence for AI, and that sort of thing.
Okay, great.
All the tools I use
here. Yeah. Right, and that's the consulting company that you're looking to kind of leverage in terms of. Got it.
Well, it wasn't my original one with Marriott and things. I'm just now repurposing it. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Got it.
Yeah, we'll add those links to the show notes below so people can easily reach out and learn more what you have going on. Well, we really want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show today. Really enjoyed the conversation and want to wish you continued success.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Joseph, thank you again for being on. Certainly do appreciate it. We also want to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like our show today with Joseph McElroy. And we all want to remind our listeners to please reach out to say hello to Bill and myself, parkcapitalpartnersllc.com. And a couple important things we have going on. First of all, we have the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund, which is a 506c fund open today to accredited investors. And second, we also have the Park Capital Partners Foundation, which is a 501(c) nonprofit that Bill and I created as another way that we give back. That way that first we fund it, so that all the money donated goes to do its best work to help others. We donate personally, we donate corporately, and then finally, when investors invest with us in one of our projects, we make a donation to honor that investor to a pre-selected list of 15 different charities. So again, reach out. We're happy to have a conversation anytime. And please again keep listening to the Road Less Traveled show. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.